Looking at the additional list in the system, Sha Luo moved in his heart and quickly reacted to something. Just as I intend to interrupt, Roger becomes the Pirate King, and therefore must interrupt many subsequent plots in the original work, although I did not intend to, but because I went to Ohara. The timeline of the Ohara plot in the original work is still because of this, and a complete change has taken place. Originally, Ohara would first study the blue stone tablet he had cut from the green pepper. After a few years, he began to send some people to explore the sea one after another. The last time he sent a large number of scholars including Orovia, to very purposefully search for historical text stone tablets, and may even obtain certain results. But then, in the 6th year of the expedition, Ohara's team was finally intercepted by Marine and killed all the scholars except Orovia. Afterwards, by examining their expedition diaries and other relics, the world government finally determined that they were from Ohara, and they were conducting a blank 100-year study, thus officially listing Ohara as the object of complete obliteration. Such a thing happened 1500 years after the Haiyuan calendar 10 years ago. But now, because he told the scholars of Ohara early that there are other stels in the world, the scholars of Ohara have omitted several years of speculation and the demonstration of related speculations. Just like in the original book, he speculated for several years and hesitated for several years before going to sea, but after he left Ohara, he immediately organized a fleet to go out to sea to find other stone tablets. Then, coupled with the other influences caused by the traveler himself, for example, after taking Zephyr away, Marine may have launched a search all over the world, trying to determine Zephyr's whereabouts. Ohara's fleet has only been at sea for a year. It was officially hit by Marine. What happened next is self-evident. Perhaps because she was the only woman in the team, Orovia was lucky enough to be protected by her comrades just like in the original book, and finally survived. However, unlike in the original book, this time, none of the conscientious giants, Vice Admiral, released her privately. So, Orovia was pushed directly into impelled down. So, are you going to save her yourself? Sha Luo took a deep breath. What's the point? Is that even a question? Do you still have to wait foolishly for the Sol Vice Admiral in the original, or it seems that he is not even Rear Admiral, at least he didn't hear his name much when Sha Luo left Marine, to release Orovia? Waiting like that, Orovia will definitely be helpless. Even, this time, it can be said that he is completely careless. He clearly knew that he had greatly disrupted the progress of the drama in the original work, but as a result, he did not consider the possibility of Orovia going to sea early and then being attacked by Marine. If Orovia is unfortunate and directly shot by Marine. For a moment, there was even a cold sweat behind Sha Luo. It's a little scary to think about. This time, it can be said that it is the most miscalculated time since I traveled through it. It seems that it is necessary to leave the nations temporarily for a while. Sha Luo immediately turned off the system and quickly found Charlotte Linlin who was practicing. Linlin, I'm in a hurry, and I'm going to leave for a while, Sha Luo said. Huh? What's the matter? Charlotte Linlin asked curiously. It's a bit complicated to say. Sha Luo thought for a while. You can take me back to Nine Snake Island to visit my other 2 ladies, and my 2 daughters. Hearing his words, Charlotte Linlin's face suddenly pulled down slightly. In the past year, Sha Luo also tentatively told Charlotte Linlin about the fact that he had other wives. After all, he has been completely hiding her words, which is neither kind nor long-term plan. So I briefly told about how I met Lisa and Tia when I was a child, got engaged, and later got married. It's just that. Let's not talk about Aurora Babena for the time being. Let's talk about it and leave a little bit. Hearing what Sha Luo mentioned, Charlotte Linlin was upset for a few days, but soon, he refreshed again. So, it's better to take them over. Charlotte Linlin frowned and said, I wouldn't mind too much just 2 little girls. Besides, they also have a relationship with you. There are only 2 daughters, but on my side, there are dozens of sons and daughters. What? Hear from Charlotte Linlin's words, Sha Luo was silent again. About 18 years ago, after meeting him and then being run away by him, Sha Luo and Linlin had somehow developed a strange logic. That is, if a man and a woman become husband and wife, they will definitely have children. Conversely, if there is a child between a man and a woman, it must be a husband and wife. At the same time, if the number of children increases, that means the relationship between husband and wife is stronger. So Charlotte Linlin and Sha Luo now have 46 children. Except for a few people who had angered Charlotte Linlin before, or accidentally bumped into Charlotte Linlin when he ran away because of sympathy, or some other accidental reasons, it was impossible to appear in front of Sha Luo. In addition to the children, Sha Luo has 23 sons and 18 daughters in Wan Guoli. The relationship between husband and wife is indestructible and extremely strong. In a sense, the strange logic of Sha Luo and Linlin is really suitable for Sha Luo. Because, Sha Luo really can't let go of the children who sincerely call him father, even if those children are adopted. Destiny, sometimes it is really wonderful. If it is someone else, Sha Luo and Linlin's strange logic may not work at all. Why do you adopt dozens of children and call me father and I have to marry you? If it's that easy, then I'll have to marry you 3 times. Yuanji adopts a few children and asks them to call the schoolgirl in the school their mother, so does the schoolgirl have to marry me? In that kind of situation, the school flower will definitely throw 3 words straight over, neuropathy. Those little kids are none of my business. However, because of Gion and Hina, Sha Luo can no longer despise the term father that Ishin stubbornly calls out. Therefore, there is a series of things that started from meeting Amando and Brie. However, those are all off topic. Now for Sha Luo, the important thing is, Charlotte Linlin is confident. This is a good thing. Otherwise, if you want to leave Wangguo, and you have to be called, Leave or Life, by Sha Luo as in the original book, it will be a pain in the ass. All in all, I will take my leave for a while, and by the way, I will also look for ways to make you smaller or make me bigger. Sha Luo thought for a while and said, keeping this size gap with you all the time is not an option. Really? Hearing his last sentence, Charlotte Linlin frowned. That's great. It is one of her dreams to make others the same size as herself, so that everyone can sit around a dining table the same size as her, which is why Guy's Gigantic in the original book came into being. Experiment. At this moment, when I heard that Sha Luo also planned to do such a thing, I couldn't help feeling joyful, and the feeling of unhappiness just now faded a lot. Yeah. Sha Luo replied simply. Making Charlotte Linlin smaller is also one of his important wishes in the past year. And Nicole Orovia, maybe, there is this possibility. Of course, the most important thing right now is to save her and save her life first. After briefly talking to Charlotte Linlin, Sha Luo temporarily suspended the 1-year match against Charlotte Linlin. Then, without lingering for a moment, just like when I rushed to dress Rosa, I immediately set off and flew towards the red line. A moment later, there may be irreparable losses. Along the way, while flying fast, Sha Luo turned on the system from time to time to check the latest situation of Orovia. At the same time, I thought to myself, going to save people this time, Orovia is in the hands of the world government. If we let them know their purpose in advance and come to a movie and TV drama to hold Orovia as a hostage, it will be a pain in the ass. So, even though he could break Impel down by force, he still had to wait until Orovia was robbed first. When you go in, be a little low-key in this case. The ability of minimization, it seems that it can be used just fine. By the way, a little more disguise. Thinking of this, Sha Luo picked a few leaves from a big tree while passing by an island. Then, while taking out a crayon, smeared the leaves a few times, and continued to go down to Impel. About 10 hours later, Sha Luo quickly skimmed the red line. Then, along the comm belt, drive forward at high speed. Although the comm belt is very wide and endless, there is no positioning system but fortunately, as a traverser, Sha Luo used to have a few more mines when he was in the Marine, and when he was a major in the Grand Line. I have personally driven the captured pirates to Impel down in the comm belt several times, for Naval Headquarters, Eni's lobby. The location of the 3 islands of Impel Down has long been known by heart. At this moment, fast forward, and a few hours later, when night fell, on the vast sea, I accurately saw the shadow of Impel Down. So, next, whoosh, Sha Luo's body shape quickly became shorter. Soon, only the size of a slap remained. Then, remove the previously remodeled leaves. And a few small coins. First, press the leaves behind you. Next, the coin is clasped on the leaf like a clasp. The corresponding electromagnetic force is quickly generated in the body, which firmly absorbs the coin, and also firmly sticks the leaves on the back and under the coin. Go ahead. Sha Luo thought to herself. Immediately, like a large wasp, it spread its wings, and quickly swept forward. At this time, when night fell, the guards of Impel Down just had to change their shifts. When the 2 teams of soldiers were handing over, Sha Luo dodged and rushed into the gate of Impel Down. Nearby, almost all the soldiers did not notice him at all. There was only one soldier, and it felt like a small figure swept past in front of him. What's the situation? The soldier pinched his nose. What a big wasp flew in. Well, forget it. Then the soldier whispered to himself, it's not a big deal anyway. What's more, this Impel Down, but nothing has happened in hundreds of years, I just need to stand guard every day, what do I do? The soldiers then calmly began to stand guard. And Sha Luo quickly flashed into Impel Down. Then, according to the impression left by the few times I have been here, move forward quickly. Whoosh, 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 in the air, a small figure flashed quickly. Nearby, the surveillance phone bugs hung in various places in the prison. Some didn't notice him at all, and some didn't take it seriously even if they detected something flying by, seeing that they were so small. After all, some floors inside Impel Down also have various bugs, hummingbirds and the like. Sha Luo turned on the system again and took a quick look. Nicole. Orovia. Gender. Female. Age, 23. Current relationship. Acquaintance. Current location. Impel Down B1 Crimson Hell. Potential relationship. Close sibling, couple. When I saw the system prompt in the morning, it seemed that it was still, Impel Down the first floor, special interrogation room. Now, although the location has changed, it is fortunate. It seems that at least it has not been directly killed by the world government. Crimson Hell, if I remember correctly, it is a large red forest. But, in the forest, it is full of leaves like a sword tree, that can cut anything like a knife, and the ground is like a sword tree, that needle grass, that pierces the human body like a needle. There are also many poisonous spiders, and prison guards come to chase from time to time, in this forest. The prisoners would run back and forth because of the poisonous spiders and the jailers, and they were finally cut into blood by the leaves and grass like knives, and they suffered torment. Thinking of Orovia being sent to such a place, Sha Luo couldn't help but feel guilty in her heart. Although Orovia's original book would have been attacked by the world government and eventually died of Ohara, this time, in any case, he still has more or less responsibility for miscalculation. Sha Luo secretly sighed, then turned off the system and continued to move forward quickly. After a while, going around the left and right, and through the first floor of stairs, finally, successfully arrived at the place where the Straw Hat Luffy and the clown buggy once passed by in the original book. So, Orovia, where are you? Sha Luo is flying fast over the red forest. At this time, I could only hear a woman's startled and angry voice from a corner in front of me. You. What are you going to do? Hearing the sound, Sha Luo's heart suddenly moved, and while quickly regrowing her body, she flew away following the sound. At the same time, only the voices of a few other men could be heard. Boss, if we mess around, we will be killed by the jailer, right? A man said hesitantly. What are you afraid of? Another man said, anyway, I'm slowly being tortured to death here. Being chased by those poisonous spiders and jailers every day, it's better to kill me directly. Now, such a good opportunity, it's worth it if you die after having a blast. That's right. This woman, but she looks quite beautiful. If you die, you will never lose. Ha ha ha, several men laughed. Hearing the laughter of several people, Sha Luo couldn't help but let out the heaviest curse since she crossed over. Sao, you suck. He rushed forward and saw Nicole Orovia leaning against the trunk of the mangrove tree under a large red sword tree, looking at the surrounding prisoners with no way out. Near her, 5 tall, short, fat, thin men surrounded her completely. Sha Luo frowned immediately. Shish. The next moment, everyone felt that the light and shadow flickered in front of them, and a tall figure had appeared in front of them, in front of Nicole Orovia. Seeing that tall figure, Orovia's eyes couldn't help but move. For a moment, I couldn't even believe it, thinking that I was hallucinating myself. That figure, although I haven't seen it for a year, is still so familiar to me. If at such an urgent moment, that man rushes over, it is definitely the most reliable guarantee in the world. But, this is Impel Down, not some other place where you can come. Could he really suddenly appear here? Orovia opened her eyes forcefully. At the same time, on the opposite side, 5 tall, short, fat, thin men were equally startled at this time. Then, a man with a slumped face at the head said loudly, "Who are you?" "Boss." As soon as he said the words, another thin man beside him was already terrified, and pointed at Sha Luo with trembling fingers. He was the one who locked me and my former captain here before. That man. How do I know who put your former captain in here? Said the man with the slumped face impatiently. At that time, my captain offered a reward of 62 million Bailey, but in front of him, he was instantly killed by a single blow. The thin middle-aged man said in horror, This person is the most handsome among the younger marine generation. Strong man, mine-eater, Sha Luo. What? Hearing his words, the faces of the other 3 men around them were in disbelief. Impossible. One of the men shouted, when I came in half a year ago, I heard that he not only teamed up with the Whitebeard man, but also with Big Mom Charlotte Linlin is also a husband and wife, and he also kidnapped him. The original, Marine Admiral Zephyr, who defeated the 9-snake Emperor Orobabena, and had already left Marine at that time, was officially rewarded by the world government. How could he still appear here? Moreover, the amount he offered for the first time was as high as 670 million Bailey. Another man said, it's an unprecedented thing. 670 million Bailey. Hearing the words of the latter two, the man with the flat face, the thin man who entered the Impel Down early, and the short man who hadn't spoken yet. All three of them froze in unison. Then, he took a quick look at Sha Luo. Then, the slumped-faced man burst out laughing. Ha 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 ha. How is this possible? The man with the face down laughed loudly. 3 years ago, when Laozi entered the Impelled Down, he still vaguely remembered the name of that Thunder Eater, Sha Luo, not the one who was with him 10 years ago. The young boy that the Whitebeard man had teamed up with. But, 10 years later, how could he still be so young and look like 25 years old? Did he go to Crusade? Thor, way when he was 15 years old? Stir. That's either he's just messing around with someone else for a victory, or the young guy in front of him is a fake, and you guys have a little brains. Hurry up and get rid of this guy who gets in the way, and you can be as happy as you want. The thin man kind of wanted to say that when he met the man 2 years ago, the man was so young, but, think about the man with the stubborn face, and also think about what the other men said about, the man has left marine things. At this time, I couldn't help but doubt, how could the man who fought the whole pirate group that he was in didn't even dare to resist? How could he suddenly appear here now? It's the woman behind him. It's really mouthwatering. Having been locked up in a place like this for 2 years, seeing a sow might have bold ideas, not to mention a beautiful woman full of intellectual aura. Hearing everyone's words, and looking at everyone's obscene eyes, Sha Luo let out a long sigh. If possible, I don't want to create too much fear and too much commotion here. After all, it's not a good thing for me next. Sha Luo said slowly, but get a good feel for the special feeling of going from 1 million volt to 100 million volts. As he said that, a huge thunderlight had already shone on him. And then, on the basement floor of Impelled Down, in Crimson Hell, there was a burst of piercing screams. Sure enough. It really is him. At the same time, there are some voices full of infinite regret. But those regrets, obviously, have no effect. The screams went from high to high, to extremely high, and then quickly became low. Soon, it finally calmed down. Behind him, Orovia whispered carefully. The scene in front of him can only be described with the word cruel. However, although the shot was a bit cruel, she seemed to be able to feel the man's heavy anger. And when he thought about that anger might be because of himself, some inexplicable feeling in his heart involuntarily welled up. Sorry, I'm almost late. Sha Luo turned around and took a deep breath. He was indeed angry, because of the damn behavior of those guys just now. At the same time, he was also a little annoyed at his miscalculation last time. How can there be? Hearing his words, Orovia couldn't help but move again. You came here specifically to save me? Forget it. Sha Luo thought for a while and said, you just think I have the ability to sense some people like life paper, so I know that something happened to you. However, why are you locked here? Hearing his words, Orovia was slightly silent. Then, slowly said, a year ago, after you left Ohara, we Ohara also organized an expedition ship to go to the world to find more stells to study. However, a few days ago, unfortunately, we encountered Marine's warship and were caught by them. In the attack, except for me, who was regarded as a weak woman by them, all other scholars have been killed. Didn't I say that if you want to live and inherit civilization, you might as well ask for my help when you feel a crisis? Sha Luo said, you can ask me to help you find it, or when you are attacked, report my name. Even if the world government holds you hostage to negotiate terms with me, at least I can find a way to solve it. It's better than being thrown into such a place and suffering such a crisis, right? But have you taken on enough? Orovia looked at him and said, Ohara has been a thorn in the eyes of the world government for the past few hundred years, and you are wanted by the world government. Wouldn't they consider you their arch enemy even more if they learned that you were still associated with Ohara in the blank 100 years research? Hearing her words, Sha Luo couldn't help being stunned. What do you think? As this? Orovia suddenly reacted, and before she knew it, it seemed that many things were being considered from the perspective of the man in front of her. Even so, a little too worried. You must know that this man in front of him is a top-level powerhouse who has been rewarded with a huge amount by the world government, but has been living very well. With him, not only Big Mom Charlotte Linlin, Whitebeard Man Edward Newgate, Yuan Marine Admiral Zephyr, although this former admiral no one knows his whereabouts now, and he himself is still a wonderful man who can travel for days and nights in a row and wake up wanting to eat thunderbolts. Such a man, as long as he is more careful. Do you really need to worry too much about him? However, I have always thought that way involuntarily. Orovia's face could not help but feel embarrassed. Then, his eyes involuntarily avoided Sha Luo slightly. Looking at her rare expression that didn't quite match her intellectual aura, like a little girl hiding her thoughts, Sha Luo couldn't help but move. Seeing Orovia's rare expression that didn't quite match her intellectual aura, a little girl's expression that seemed to conceal her thoughts, Sha Luo couldn't help but move. The woman in front of her, the words she just said were undoubtedly more like her personal thoughts. After all, he has no friendship with other people in Ohara, except for Orovia. How can other people have the face to please him? But this guy, he is about to fall into a desperate situation, and he is still thinking about not involving him? Your sister. All of this is really the same virtue as her daughter in the original book. In order not to implicate Straw Hat Crew, Robin decides to die himself. And Orovia, in order not to implicate him even in the face of a life and death crisis, he didn't want to pull him in. In the end, both mother and daughter faced the same fate, one by one impelled down. However, one was cut off before being sent to impel down. One had already been sent to impel down, and then was rescued by himself in the nick of time. But in either case, neither of them had a trace of regret. Sure enough, the biological mother and daughter. Sha Luo took a deep breath. Sorry, Robin. Although I originally had the idea of, when you were born, when you grow up, let you be my woman. However, there are some affection, some women, when they meet, they can't miss it again. Unless you're pregnant now, otherwise be my daughter, Robin. No matter who your mother Orovia is dating now, as long as she's not engaged, I'm going to force my way in, grab her. What's more, to take Orovia from here and leave Impel down smoothly, I'm afraid I must immediately establish a relationship with Orovia. Ta. 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 The screams just now clearly caught the attention of the Impel down guards. While Sha Luo made up his mind, he heard footsteps not far away. Soon, two tall men, with a group of soldiers and jailers, appeared in the field of vision of Sha Luo and Orovia. Those two tall men, a 24 or 5-year-old, with a big body and small legs, with a serious face, are the poisonous fruit-capable people who later became the director of Impel Down in the original book and had just been promoted to the deputy director. Magellan. The other is already in his 60s or 70s, holding a huge iron rod in his hand, which is quite similar to Alvida, the female captain of the pirate group where Kobe was in the original Straw Hat Luffy met when he first appeared. Similar, like a male version of Alvida. However, although the shape is similar, the strength between the two is completely different. Seeing the man in his 60s and 70s holding an iron rod in his hand, Sha Luo took a slight breath. Come here. Only the elite vice admiral level in the away game, but super admiral level in the Impel Down home game. Few in this era can even compete with the original 4 emperors such as Whitebeard and Charlotte Linlin when they are at the Impel Down home. One of the hard anal marines, the most important reason why Impel Down in the original book in the past few decades and in the next 10 years is called a steel wall. The current director of Impel Down, Nightmare Fruit ability, Clarence Calvin. Its ability, from the name of the fruit, is not difficult to imagine. It absorbs the nightmares of countless prisoners, strengthens its own strength and physique, and greatly improves its recovery ability. In addition, it can create a nightmare space to mentally oppress and torture the corresponding enemies. In addition, after the fruit awakens, it can even temporarily manifest some of the things in the nightmare in the form of spiritual bodies to attack the spirit of the opponent. As long as there are a large number of prisoners in Impel Down, as long as the fear and despair in their hearts exist, this guy can attack almost infinitely and recover infinitely, just like a certain son of the earth who has infinite power as long as he stands on the ground in Greek mythology, the real meaning, home dragons, away bugs, on. However, even if the away game is bug, now, in this Impel Down home, there is no point in discussing. I really didn't expect that Big Mom's husband, Whitebeard's old friend, the man who kidnapped Marine Admiral, the former Major Marine Sha Luo, would appear here. Looking at Sha Luo opposite, Calvin smiled gloomily. Today, in my Impel Down, a rare guest came unexpectedly. It's all right. Sha Luo simply smiled. I was actually remembered by Nightmare. It seems that after I go back today, I'm going to have some nightmares. The name of the Thunder Eater, Sha Luo, is also like thunder, Calvin said with a gloomy smile. I wanted to fight you a long time ago. Really? Sha Luo said lightly. It's just that, with a woman, your odds of winning today don't seem to be very good. Calvin laughed. I won't talk about fairness to any reward criminal. The implication is that in a duel, he will unceremoniously attack Orovia. Hearing this, Sha Luo smiled lightly. Originally, he planned to come in quietly, save Orovia and leave, and if he took Orovia, it was really inconvenient to fight Calvin. You must know that there is not only Calvin, but also Magellan. Although Magellan's strength has not fully grown, once the poisonous fruit succeeds, it will obviously be extremely troublesome. In addition, if he rescued Orovia quietly, he could try not to cause the general hostility of the world government immediately. Orovia could return to Ohara and give birth to Robin just like in the original book. But now, everything doesn't need to be so troublesome. If you want to fight, then fight. Ohara, lousy cover. That is not difficult for me. Sha Luo said slowly. After saying that, she looked at Orovia who was behind her body. Orovia, be my wife. Looking at Orovia at the back of her body, Sha Luo said slowly. What? Hearing his words, Orovia was taken aback for a moment. For a moment, I even wondered if I had heard it wrong, or had some hallucinations. After all, Sha Luo was still confronting the director of Impel Down on the opposite side a second ago. In the next second, it suddenly becomes a proposal to yourself? This godlike, no signal turnaround would make anyone stunned. But at the same time, my heart was beating involuntarily. Not only was Orovia stunned, but on the opposite side, Calvin, Magellan, and the soldiers and jailers who followed behind were also stunned. Ha 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 ha. The next moment, Calvin burst into laughter. Hey, did I hear it wrong, or did you also use some ability to make me hallucinatory? How could you be at this juncture? The woman next to me proposed. That's right. Sha Luo said lightly, when you think about it, speak up, this is my style. After speaking, he glanced at Orovia again. So, what's the answer? Sha Luo said. Hearing his words, Orovia was slightly taken aback again. It seems that he really heard right. This guy, really, proposed to him? Although I don't know why he did this suddenly, after all, if he wants to pursue himself, it's not too late to wait until Impel Down is out. However, since he did so, there must be his reasons. Okay. Orovia said slowly. If he is a fake marriage proposal, I agree to him temporarily, of course it's nothing, when he cancels the engagement, I won't blame him. And if he really proposed, I promise him, it seems that there is nothing wrong with it. On the contrary, in my heart, I couldn't help being a little excited and looking forward to it. Responding simply and obediently, Orovia quickly looked at Sha Luo, trying to see something from his face. And Sha Luo, at this time, smiled with satisfaction. That's good. Although Orovia was slightly surprised, she did not hesitate. It seems that because of the various influences he has caused, Orovia has indeed embarked on a completely different life trajectory from the original. Because she went to Red Line early to find herself, she didn't fall in love with anyone, and also, because she went to sea several years in advance to find the historical text stone tablet, she was not engaged to anyone. In the original book, her husband who died before he appeared, for her, she was just an ordinary colleague. It seems that I don't need to force someone to grab someone. And Nicole Robin. Really only made it by myself. Fair enough. Orovia is her Nicole Robin in this era. And Robin, in the future, can also give her a warm childhood different from the original. Ding. While Sha Luo was muttering to himself, the system prompt sounded. System prompt. Easter egg 11 successfully opened. Easter egg 11. The Eye of Analysis. Establish a high degree of intimacy with any outstanding scholar in Ohara, and you can get inspiration from him and comprehend the corresponding deduction and analysis ability, the Eye of Analysis. The Easter egg is currently successfully opened, and the personal exclusive, Analysis Eye, is opened. Eye of Analysis. The ability to analyze and deduce all things. Using this ability, you can directly and quickly analyze some of the abilities used by yourself or the enemies in your field of vision, and you can also quickly deduce some non-biological and even abstract things. If successful analysis and deduction can temporarily or permanently convert some of its limited use capabilities. Expand the scope of use. Can quickly see through the opponent's ability, and simulate temporarily or permanently to a certain extent. Some abilities will be limited by their own physical fitness. The stronger the physical fitness, the lower the simulation limit. Some abstract things can be quickly carried out. Logical reasoning, formulate sophisticated tactics, or identify enemy traps or deceptions early. For other applications, please comprehend and develop. Before reading the corresponding instructions, Sha Luo quickly felt a special power flowing through her body. And quickly and completely integrated with itself. Especially your own brain. It seems that some kind of spring that can be called the source of wisdom has formed in his own brain, and the spring water, flowing from the source of wisdom, not only makes his eyes clearer, as if seeing something the problem can be seen through quickly, and the spring water is connected with its own limbs, as if there is an extra piece with more functions. Strengthening the powerful neural network, it seems that the ability to adjust to the body has become better. Good, that's what I want. Then the next step is to try this ability. Sha Luo quickly focused and sent to activate another ability. Minimization. That is the special ability that he obtained after he became the big hero of the Dongtada clan. Originally, this ability could only be used on oneself. But now, Sha Luo seems to have been able to abstract and extract that ability and concentrate on his own hands. Just like in the original book, Bartholomew. Bear concentrated his ability on the bear's paw. Then, tap Orovia next to him. Whoosh! The next moment, Orovia's body quickly became smaller. Other objects around get bigger quickly. Orovia was taken aback. As for Sha Luo, at this time, her arms moved down quickly, wrapped around her waist, and hugged her all at once. Then, in Sha Luo's arms, Orovia continued to shrink rapidly. Soon, it had become only the size of a palm, and was held by Sha Luo instead of hugging him. Seeing this scene, on the opposite side, Calvin, Magellan, and other soldiers and jailers were stunned at the same time. Small and big fruit? A strange ability to make others small? Orovia changed from a tall young beauty in a blink of an eye to a little man, with a height of 20 centimeters held by Sha Luo. Seeing this scene, on the opposite side, Calvin, Magellan, and others the soldiers and jailers were stunned at the same time. I have never heard of this guy, he has such abilities. Isn't he, Thunder Eater Sha Luo? Manipulating thunder and lightning is the ability he has always shown a lot, right? However, now suddenly making others smaller, no matter how you think about it, it has nothing to do with the ability to manipulate lightning. Could it be that he could eat 2 devil fruits? That's for sure. Thunder Eater Sha Luo, I didn't expect you to be an unheard of double fruit person. Calvin said, now think about it, you make yourself in your 30s, but you still look like 24 or 5 years old. The ability of a young person should be the ability to use devil fruit to reduce his age, right? Yes? Hearing Calvin's words, Sha Luo raised her brows slightly. Damn, there is such a reasonable explanation, I have never thought of it. Since you are so sure, then consider it like this, Sha Luo laughed. Lousy is not only a double fruit, but also a person with the ability of 3 fruit, 4 fruit, and n fruit. And Lousy is not afraid of seawater and sea stone. So, when you make her smaller, are you going to hold her with one hand and fight me with the other? Calvin said. So what? Sha Luo frowned, to deal with you, one hand is enough. Then see if you have that ability, Calvin said angrily. As soon as the voice fell, he saw his figure flash, and the next moment, he had already rushed several meters in front of Sha Luo. The iron rod in his hand has become like a giant stone pillar. Then, with great force, he hit Sha Luo with a blow. Seeing this, Sha Luo was also unequivocal, took Orovia in his left hand, raised his right arm, and punched him. Woo! Suddenly, there was a loud crash in the air. Woo! The strong wind pressure instantly swept through the surroundings like an ocean wave. Around, all the soldiers and jailers staggered backward involuntarily. Many people also directly hit the swordgrass on the ground. In an instant, everyone could only hear a scream of pain, and they were stabbed by the swordgrass and grinned. The fierce wind even made one feel that even the space was shaking. What a strong hit! Nearby, the young Magellan was moving. Just relying on the collision to create such a wind pressure, those 2 men, if their attack hits others, what a terrifying effect will it have? Magellan looked anxiously into the battle circle. At this moment, Sha Luo's right arm waved vigorously, and the huge iron rod in Calvin's hand, which was as huge as a stone pillar, suddenly couldn't hold back and leaned back. Impossible. Magellan looked surprised again. That Thunder Eater, Sha Luo, his strength, is even better than Calvin with the impel down big home bonus. Something never imagined. You must know that not long ago, I also asked the old director for advice, and as a result, there was no doubt that I was easily crushed in terms of strength. At that time, when I asked how much of Calvin's strength was used, the other party's answer was, about 20%. Although he is not good at strength, he only uses 20% of his strength to crush himself in strength. How powerful Calvin is when he exerts his full strength is simply unimaginable. However, such a powerful Calvin was actually, he was overwhelmed by someone else? How far has that Thunder Eater Sha Luo reached? Nice punching power. In the battle circle, Calvin quickly took back the iron stick that was beaten back, and his face was slightly moved. You guy, I didn't expect you to be really strong. It's okay. Sha Luo said lightly. He fights with Charlotte Linlin every month, and it is not surprising that he is used to this level of power collision. So, what? Calvin said solemnly. Saying that, he flashed back quickly, and then, the iron rod slammed into the ground. The next moment, I saw a black light and shadow, which spread out like electricity in a large area. The surrounding scene suddenly became dark. And then, under Sha Luo's feet, with Sha Luo as the vortex center, a black, huge Uzumaki quickly formed. In the Uzumaki, a powerful suction force was generated, as if to pull Sha Luo directly into the bottomless abyss. Sha Luo quickly used the ability of electromagnetic levitation and electromagnetic ejection to fly into the air. But in the next instant, the huge Uzumaki also suddenly produced a greater suction force, pulling Sha Luo strongly. The two actually formed a temporary stalemate. The strong suction even makes people feel that even the surrounding space is sucked and twisted. Seeing this, Sha Luo frowned slightly. This is. The gate of hell is the embodiment of the nightmare that people are deeply immersed in and cannot extricate themselves from. Calvin said with a deep laugh. This impelled down person experiences hell every day, and dreams of the deepest dreams every night. The hell of pulling. Sooner or later you'll experience all that too. But right now, be proud of it, you're the first one who can let me use this kind of intensity. Really? Sha Luo said lightly. If he hadn't already known that he was a nightmare fruit's power user, he would have thought it was dark fruit at a glance. Nightmare fruit, in theory, can manifest all the dark and terrifying things in nightmares, but this ability close to imagination, its consumption of physical strength can also be imagined, and to have a higher intensity, obviously it will consume more physical strength. Generally speaking, it is not very cost-effective to use this kind of materialized thing to fight against a master. However, for Calvin in front of him, there is no need to consider those. Because, here is impelled down, it is his natural and biggest home. Countless prisoners who have been trapped in nightmares of fear and despair are his constant strength, allowing him to unleash his abilities to the highest level. The home court is just so capricious and so do whatever you want. While using the gate of hell to temporarily hold Sha Luo, Calvin sneered again. Next. Taste the flames of purgatory again. When his voice fell, the huge Uzumaki, which was originally gloomy and dark, suddenly reflected a piece of red light like the eyes of a wolf in the dark night. And then, boom, countless flames soared into the sky. In an instant, Sha Luo's figure was completely engulfed by the endless sea of fire. Boom. The soaring flames completely engulfed Sha Luo's body in an instant. And Sha Luo, until the flames turned the entire space into a sea of fire, did not come out quickly at all. Seeing this scene, Marine soldiers and jailers couldn't help but move at the same time. Burn him? While secretly talking to myself? Call. A group of intense flames, like a cannonball, shot out from the sea of flames. And instantly arrived in front of Calvin. Calvin's pupils could not help shrinking. The next moment, he frowned, standing there without dodging or dodging. Boom. A strong flame instantly hit Calvin. Calvin stepped back involuntarily, then, barely stabilized. At this time, when I looked at myself, I saw that there was a big hole in the area around the mouth of Shang. Then, a mass of scrap iron fell from the wound. It's that guy's electromagnetic cannonball, Magellan said urgently from the side. Director Calvin, are you okay? Humph. Hearing his concerned words, Calvin sneered disdainfully. In this impelled down, will I have a problem? As he spoke, he saw the wound on his body, and a large black shadow soon appeared. The black shadow merged into the wound, and the wound healed quickly at a speed visible to the naked eye. It's like a black version of phoenix fruit. On the opposite side, the flames of hell subsided at this time. In the sky above the gate of hell, that has not yet been closed, I saw Sha Luo floating there steadily. Around his body, a purple-gold halo completely enveloped him. Like a pair of purple-gold armor. The materialization of thunder and lightning, the energy injection of immortal state, and the addition of armament hockey, form a comprehensive defense, the armor of the Thunder Emperor. Sure enough, it's not that easy to take down. Calvin sneered, so, can you completely defend against the next attack? Saying that, the iron one stick slammed on the ground, monster, ghost, 100 ghosts at night. When his voice fell, around, a large number of strange figures appeared quickly in an instant. At the same time, countless noisy voices rushed into everyone's ears. Gia 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 gia, ho 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 ho. Woo. He 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 he. The voice was sharp or heavy, crying or laughing, and in an instant, countless people felt a creepy feeling in their hearts involuntarily. As for those figures, some were like fierce beasts, some were like bones, some were like pigs and snakes, and some had only a human head without a body, and so on. A collection of monsters that appear in everyone's nightmares in this impelled down. The name 100 ghosts is actually far more than 100. After they were manifested, all the demons, ghosts, and monsters quickly seemed to know the intention of the summoner, and rushed towards Sha Luo from all directions. All around, the wind was blowing. Sha Luo frowned. If you guessed correctly, the attack this time is probably not a physical attack. Rather, it is a spiritual attack that penetrates physical defenses. That being the case, the territory of tyrants. Sha Luo frowned. In an instant, the invisible coercion, at a speed faster than the ghosts, like a tide, faced the ghosts rushing towards them, and spread and rushed out in an instant. Outside, all Marine soldiers and jailers felt a chill in their hearts. And around, the countless ghosts that were about to rush over, at this time, instantly seemed to be weak shadows, blown by the invisible wind, like lime powder, and flew backwards in a blink of an eye. In the air, there were screams of countless ghosts being forcibly thrown into reincarnation. Plop. 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 A few dozen meters away, all the marine soldiers and jailers collapsed one after another. Even on each floor of Impelled Down, there was a sound of falling to the ground. On the battlefield, only Calvin and Magellan were left standing there. And Magellan, his face was also slightly pale. Seeing this scene, Calvin frowned tightly. "Director, this is..." Magellan exclaimed. "It is rumored that very few people can awaken a special talent, Hockey of Conquerors." Calvin said solemnly, "I really did not expect that he has such an ability, and it has reached such an intensity." Hearing his words, Magellan couldn't help but wonder even more on his face. "It's okay." On the opposite side, Sha Luo exhaled lightly and said. "But, thanks to your Conqueror's suppression," Calvin said, "so, the prisoners in this Impelled Down." More terrified. "Those horrors are my favorite." Calvin laughed and said, "Come and taste the power of the horrors you bring, the nightmares you bring them. Infinite nightmare. The world of Pluton." When his voice fell, all the surrounding scenes changed completely and quickly. The next moment, Sha Luo found that she was already in a terrifying wilderness. On all sides, there was a cold, overcast wind. The ground beneath his feet was intermittent, and pieces of red lava flowed out of the cracks. Not far away, a very wide river, like the Yangtze River, flows with red river water, lingering and shocking. But these are not the most important. The most important thing is that in front of him, a huge figure, like a mountain, stared at him solemnly. That figure, in terms of shape, is a bit like Kaido, the 100 Beasts in the original book. However, its size is completely incomparable to the Kaido. In front of that figure, even if he didn't transform himself. It is also like becoming a Dong Tata clan. This is. That huge figure is undoubtedly the Pluton, that Calvin calls himself, Pluton, in front of the Pluton, who is like a giant. Sha Luo is like a small human, not to mention Oro, who was turned into a small human by Sha Luo. The huge difference in size, for a moment, even made Orovia feel like an ant facing an elephant, and blurted out involuntarily. "Welcome to my world. Here, I am the absolute king." In front of him, Calvin smiled solemnly, then next. "Feel the power of Pluton." Saying that, he raised the equally huge iron rod in his hand. Then, with a "hoo" sound, with a strong wind pressure, he slammed down the little human like Sha Luo with great force. Cut. Sha Luo cursed inwardly. This time, I'm afraid it's not very convenient to directly connect it, and then quickly dodge. But at this time, he suddenly felt that his speed seemed to be much slower than when he was the strongest. Fairy state. Doesn't seem to work. This world isolates the energy that exists in nature from the outside world. Or to be more precise, this world is full of endless darkness, energy transmitted from Impelled Down. That kind of dark energy not only directly isolates his immortal state and absorbs the energy of nature to strengthen himself, but also, just like the friction force that changed the air by her when he was fighting with Orobabena, let Sha Luo herself, there is a feeling of heaviness in the sand. Ziz. The huge iron rod was already close to the top of his head in a blink of an eye, and Sha Luo suddenly forcibly increased the electromagnetic force and quickly retreated backwards. Boom. In the next instant, a huge iron rod slammed heavily on the place where he was standing. The ground suddenly shook, and there was a feeling that the ground was shaking. A large number of rock blocks splattered instantly. Ah! At the same time, in the hands of Sha Luo, Orovia involuntarily let out a cry that seemed to be numb. Sha Luo's brows moved involuntarily. In the next moment, the strength of the electromagnetism on his body was weakened. Call. At this time, Calvin has raised the iron one again and attacked again. Cut. Sha Luo cursed inwardly. Then flash again quickly. Boom. The huge iron one rod almost passed by this time. The speed of the shot. Sha Luo thought to himself, he's actually quite agile. In this world full of dark energy, it seemed to Sha Luo that he was in the sand, but Calvin's speed was completely unaffected. The opponent is big and flexible. This kind of flexible dead fat man even makes people feel quite helpless for a moment. After hitting Sha Luo twice in a row, Calvin also stopped slightly. Your speed seems to have dropped a lot, Calvin laughed. Maybe. Sha Luo took a breath and said noncommittally. Of course, you didn't use full electromagnetic ability, right? Calvin sneered, to protect that woman. As he spoke, he looked at the small Orovia that Sha Luo was holding in his left hand. Orovia is an ordinary human body after all, and it is impossible to withstand too high an electric field. Even if Sha Luo intentionally controlled the distribution of the electric field, in addition to the fierce battle, he could not help but worry about whether there would be occasional electric leakage. For example, when he urgently raised the electromagnetic intensity just now, he directly caused Orovia to exhale involuntarily. In this way, when fighting, there must be some scruples. Sha Luo really did not turn on the electromagnetic ability to the highest strength. Otherwise, in the electromagnetic environment of hundreds of millions of volts, even if there is a slight leakage, there may be a high voltage of several million volts. The immortal state cannot be turned on, and the electromagnetic ability cannot be turned on to the highest intensity. This is indeed a very unfavorable situation. Sha Luo. Hearing the conversation between the two, Orovia suddenly reacted and said loudly, "Don't worry about me, fight him with all your strength." But when she heard her words, Sha Luo didn't pay attention to it immediately, but raised her brows slightly. If you purely use the existing force, you are subject to various reasons, and you are indeed at a disadvantage. In this case, we have to see if we can use intelligence to make up for it. Ding. Taking advantage of this gap, Sha Luo had already activated the ability of Analysis I. Again, thinking about the current situation. Then, the sound of the system prompt suddenly sounded. At the same time, a series of various things seemed to have been imprinted directly in his mind at a high speed even before Sha Luo himself hadn't figured it out right away, as if a logical reasoning had been installed in his mind. It turned him into a humanoid reasoning machine, and cracked out the corresponding thought process in his mind like a printer. Analysis I. Passive attribute excitation. Those with this ability can observe, analyze, think, and deduce twice as fast, and can quickly abstract the entire analysis process in the mind in the form of words, and read directly. Analysis of the current situation. The so-called nightmare is originally associated with nightmares, so even if you use conquerors to knock down the corresponding object, it will not cut off the endless fear generated by the countless prisoners in Impelled Down who are in a nightmare-like scene, and even people in dreams, despair and panic are more likely to occur. In this case, the power that the nightmare fruit can obtain, as well as the dark energy in this space, are almost endless in a short period of time, which allows Calvin to unscrupulously turn on the corresponding high consumption state and hinder his own power from exerting himself. To defeat him in this state, there are 3 ways. 1. Forcibly crushing the opponent with an absolute strength gap and ignoring the opponent's home field advantage. 2. Use the ability of anti-boundary to forcibly destroy nightmare space and smash the opponent's home court. 3. Use your own domain to forcibly turn the surrounding into your home field and overwhelm or exclude the opponent. Among the 3 methods, the first one doesn't apply. In the home court situation, the opponent is the role of the so-called Whitebeard comes and fights, although it is only a proclaimed. The second required ability, I don't have it yet. Sha Luo took a deep breath. In the fountain of wisdom of the brain, a series of thoughts quickly emerged instinctively, as if loaded with a high-power processor. For the first time I used this special processor, I was still quite uncomfortable, and I felt that it was starting to heat up and was about to be overloaded. But it is also this unfavorable situation, or even a desperate situation, that can often stimulate one's potential, just as Luffy and Zoro of Straw Hat Crew in the original work are often in various desperate fights to forcibly improve themselves. Therefore, they can only practice for 2 years and make great progress, and this is not purely because of some protagonist halo. As for myself, who has always cherished himself very much and refused to forcibly improve himself by fighting for his life, so he has only raised his armament to the level of an elite vice admiral in the past 10 years, this time. It is necessary to try and work hard a little bit. Of course, you can't really overheat your brain and burn yourself out all at once. Sha Luo frowned, and while quickly adapting to this processor-loaded thinking mode, she continued to analyze and deduce. There are 2 fields that I have now, one, the field of electromagnetism, the other, the field of tyrants. Electromagnetic ability can help improve one's own reaction ability, but it cannot forcibly suppress the other party's spiritual field. Then, if the tyrant's territory, it is also a skill that affects a large area and a large space, and is related to spirit or spirit. Can you find inspiration from the opposite, nightmare space? Sha Luo frowned and thought of something quickly. And when he himself hadn't immediately sorted out what he thought, the eye of analysis had already taken effect, and the fountain of wisdom in his brain had already been operating synchronously. Then, in Sha Luo's eyes, a special scene suddenly appeared, like the most beautiful garden in the world. At the same time, the corresponding analysis and the corresponding thinking results have been quickly abstracted in the mind in the form of language and words. Infinite nightmare. The analysis is initially completed, the analysis level, primary. The territory of tyrants. The deduction is preliminarily completed, the deduction level, primary. Infinite nightmare. A real and independent personal world formed by combining the nightmares of countless prisoners of Impelled Down with the demonic power of the nightmare fruit and manifesting the mental image world shared by all people. The territory of tyrants. The ability to use the aura of a tyrant to coerce a designated area or a designated enemy, or cause substantial physical oppression, or even command the heavens and the earth, change the color of the situation, dominate the corresponding things, and even the corresponding area. Possibility of fusion. Moderate. At present, you can try to use the ability of Analysis I to temporarily or permanently simulate the independent world of Infinite Nightmare, to a certain extent, and combine your own mental image scene with the independent world to form a temporary, substantial, in a certain degree, the tyrant space that is controlled to a certain extent by itself. Sha Luo's eyes suddenly lit up. At the same time, Orovia saw that he was ignoring her, and at this time he continued to say loudly, "If you are willing to save me, I am very satisfied." All the thinking just now, only less than 10 seconds have passed. Although the price is that there is already a feeling of overheating in the brain now. Hearing Orovia's words, Sha Luo smiled calmly. "Hey, how naive are you to persuade a man to leave his wife?" Sha Luo laughed. Hearing his words, Orovia was stunned. This man, he actually. At this juncture, he will never abandon himself? And, really treating himself as his wife? In an instant, Orovia felt a strong surge in her heart. In an instant, I even felt that when I heard this sentence, my whole life seemed to be worth it. Ha 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 ha. On the other hand, Calvin burst out laughing. As a top powerhouse, to be like this for a woman, Thunder Eater Sha Luo, I really misunderstood you before. The three-legged toad is hard to find, and the two-legged woman is not easy to find. Longer than her there are so many beautiful beauties in the world. Do you have a problem with your brain, or have you given up hope and stubborn before you die? Unfortunately, neither of the two. Hearing this, Sha Luo took a breath, letting the overheating state in his mind dissipate a little, and smiled calmly at the same time. I just think that one day in the future, when I retire, I really want this woman to accompany me. Retire. Ha 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 ha. Calvin laughed again. Will there be such a day? Where do you want to retire? Want to take a look? Sha Luo said, then, let me show you first. Saying that, frowning. Who? The next moment, a strong wind pressure suddenly spreads out violently around him, centered on him. In that violent wind pressure, all the surrounding scenes began to shake completely and quickly. Like a drawing board, the original drawing was quickly wiped away with a rag. At the same time, new drawings, in a blink of an eye, unfolded. The surrounding light and shadow changed instantly. It was originally as dark as hell, but when the wind pressure dissipated, it suddenly became bright. Could it be that? Calvin's face couldn't help moving. When I looked around anxiously, I saw that at this moment, I was no longer in the wilderness of hell. Instead, there is a wide courtyard. The center of the courtyard is where he is standing now. Around it, there are large expanses of grassy meadows, as well as tall and short forests with various exotic flowers and plants in red, green and green. There is another slender river, meandering, flowing slowly through the grass and woods. In a slightly farther place, in the direction facing him, there is a large castle, which stands impressively. Although it does not seem to be very luxurious, it is quiet and elegant, and it is full of peace and leisure. In the further periphery, around the courtyard, there are more than 10 magnificent pillars, which are not only like huge chess pieces, but also like stone tablets that record historical and great achievements. They are dignified and calm. Here is, looking at all this, Calvin and Orovia couldn't help but look shocked. As for Sha Luo, she spread out her left hand at this time, and the Orovia, which was originally in her hand, quickly became bigger again. Then he looked at Calvin on the opposite side. As you wish, this is what you want to see and where I want to live when I retire. Across the world, leaving a great achievement that is praised by thousands of people in the world, engraving one's own proud legendary name in history, and then returning to seclusion. This garden is quite suitable for such a life, right? Welcome to visit my world, the courtyard of the king. Saying that, he stretched his right arm leisurely. Hearing Sha Luo's words, Kavanner's pupils widened. The king's garden? Could this guy have activated a skill similar to his own? But this is impossible. Isn't he a person with electromagnetic ability, and a person with big and small fruit ability? Those two abilities, no matter how you think about them, must be completely incompatible with the skills in front of you that even open up a small world in one world, right? That's right. Whether it is Nightmare Space, or the King's Courtyard, it is already a small world, independent of the big world, just like the materialization of the Tsukuyomi space in Hokage, or the Fate in Fate, inherent boundary. This ability is not something that can be achieved by discharging lightning and controlling the electric field. Could it be that he still has 3 fruits? What kind of power do you guys have? How many devil fruits did you eat? Calvin said in disbelief. His disbelief is obviously justified, because devil fruit can only eat one. This is something that almost all able people know, it is beyond common sense to eat 2 devil fruit, let alone 3. Even Calvin, who has watched Impel Down for decades and abused countless capable people here, can only have nightmares every night, but he can't accept it immediately. What kind of person am I? Hearing Calvin's words, Sha Luo smiled leisurely. I don't know this question very well. To be honest, before he came to Impel Down, he never thought that he would create a skill similar to inherent enchantment here. In addition to this inherent enchantment, the courtyard of the king, as well as the existing electromagnetic ability and the ability to make people smaller, what other new abilities he will have in the future, he himself does not know now. Anyway, take your time to guess. Compared to this, next, how are you going to fight? Sha Luo continued to laugh. Hearing this, Calvin frowned. He could already feel that after entering the king's courtyard, Impel Down, who had been supplying him with dark energy, had temporarily lost contact with him. Here, it is no longer his world, but the other party's world. In this case, if you continue to maintain the Pluton state, then the next thing that will be consumed at a high speed is your physical energy. Home field advantage. Cut off like this. This is the first time since I took charge of Impel Down. Damn it. Calvin said solemnly, in that case, Lousy will kill you two first. After speaking, while still having the physical strength to maintain the Pluton state, he raised a huge iron rod and smashed it towards Orovia next to Sha Luo first. You want to restrain me by attacking my wife? Sha Luo frowned. Then let's see whose territory it is now. Saying that, she quickly tapped Orovia with her left hand. The next moment, Orovia's body suddenly disappeared from the place. There is no doubt that she has been sent out of this enchantment. As for Sha Luo, a strong electric light shone from her body. Next, it's time for you to see my full strength. After he finished speaking, his figure flashed quickly. Who? In the vast courtyard, a violent crash sounded quickly. 2 minutes later, the long sword with the color of lightning and arm directly penetrated the heart of Calvin, who was unable to maintain Pluton, and returned to his normal state. Calvin fell heavily, looking annoyed, unwilling, and unbelievable. I never thought that I, who had been sitting on Impel Down for decades and claimed to be able to fight with anyone in the world here, would actually be defeated like this. Even, half a minute before the defeat, he was already in a state of being completely crushed. After all, after losing the home court advantage provided by Impel Down and no longer sustaining Pluton, he's really just an elite vice admiral. Thunder Eater Sha Luo, this guy. Calvin wanted to say something, but couldn't say it at all. And Sha Luo, at this time, exhaled a long breath and smiled slightly. I didn't have any grudges with you before, but if it was me who lost, you wouldn't let me go, would you? Don't worry, the other prisoners of Impel Down, I won't leave them indiscriminately. Hearing his words, Calvin's face moved slightly. For a moment, he seemed to recall his original intention of doing his duty and taking good care of all the prisoners in the world when he first came to Impel Down. However, as his home field advantage became more and more obvious and stronger when he was in Impel Down, this place gradually became a place for me to show off my strength. How to make the prisoners in Impel Down more afraid of themselves, how to torture them to the fullest and let them live in nightmares every day, these become their daily life later. Therefore, he finally neglected further practice. So, finally today, ushered in such a result. Fair enough. The owner of Conqueror's Hockey, the owner of the King's Courtyard, is not a pity to lose to such a character. On Calvin's face, a sudden, extremely slight smile appeared. Then, don't move. Sha Luo exhaled slightly again times. A duel is a duel, and saving people is saving people, but this time he came to Impel Down, not to cause trouble. In the original book, the Straw Hat Luffy made a big fuss about Impel Down, and as a result, he released countless prisoners. No matter what the world is, prisoners always have to be watched. At this point, he was not against Calvin. However, just as he said just now, if it is him who loses, the other party will not be merciful, so of course he cannot leave troubles later. Oh yes, although your ability to leave Impel Down is not very useful, but, put it away first, it's better than nothing. Sha Luo suddenly remembered something. Immediately, with the movement of his hand, some fruits such as apples, pineapples, and honeydew melons appeared quickly. Place these fruits on Calvin's corpse. I saw a spiral texture on the rind of one of the honeydew melons. Soon, a new devil fruit was formed. Sha Luo put the fruit into the storage space. Then, frowning. The next moment, the surrounding light and shadow shook. The garden disappeared. Soon, Sha Luo returned to the Crimson Hell on the basement level of Impel Down, which was full of sword trees and sword grass. Sha Luo soon appeared where she had disappeared. On the opposite side, Calvin's body, with the long sword inserted into Zai's body, also appeared where he was standing. The Magellan and Marine soldiers and the jailers were around, watching. Beside her, Orovia raised her hands in a "I surrender" gesture. Seeing Sha Luo reappear, Orovia quickly put down both hands, and then quickly approached Sha Luo. Huh? Opposite, Magellan and others couldn't help but startled. They seemed to have received some strange information just now, as if they did not expect that Sha Luo would come back alive. Magellan frowned. At this time, a soldier finally noticed Calvin's body on the other side. Deputy Director Magellan. Director Calvin he. The soldier exclaimed in shock. Hearing the soldier's exclamation, Magellan reacted suddenly and quickly looked towards where Calvin was. Then, shocked. Director Calvin, who has been impelled down for decades and who claims to be able to fight against any master in the world here, not only made his opponent alive and reappeared in front of him and others this time, but also himself. He seems to have a sword stuck in his body and is lying there? Director Calvin, Magellan exclaimed. Then, he quickly rushed towards Calvin. Nearby, the Marine soldiers and the jailers followed with the same shocked expressions. I saw that Calvin had lost his breath at this time. You actually killed Director Calvin? Magellan exclaimed in shock and anger. Me and him are just a fair duel. If he wins, he will kill me. If I win, of course I will kill him. Sha Luo said lightly, don't worry. I told him that other people in impelled down, and prisoners, I won't move this time. Of course, the premise is that you will not rush up to find death. Hearing his words, Magellan and the others could not help but stun. The premise is that you will not rush up to find death. I rushed over now, indeed, it was just courting death. The man on the opposite side, he not only killed Director Calvin, but there are already enough rumors about him. Teamed up with Whitebeard Edward Newgate and was featured by Big Mom Charlotte Linlin, known as her husband, defeated the Nine-Snake Emperor Orobabena, kidnapped the original Marine Admiral Zephyr, and there are also rumors that in the past year, he and Charlotte Linlin used to be in some parts of the New World. The uninhabited island, discussed, and as a result, the uninhabited island was almost razed to FTT. Plus today Director Calvin also died at his hands. All of this shows without a doubt that he is definitely not an ordinary person, or even a role that anyone can leave alone. Magellan took a deep breath and stood still, not moving. Keep an eye on the other prisoners. Sha Luo, at this time, said slowly, by the way, tell the world government a few words on my behalf. What? Magellan said. O'Hara, I'm covering it. Sha Luo said word by word, if you want to start, then prepare yourself mentally for a full-scale war. Hearing this, Magellan and the Marine soldiers froze again in unison. Summit war. There is no doubt that Sha Luo meant. If you really want to do it, then, I'm not afraid to fight a summit war of this era with you. You, plus the Big Mom pirates, and even the Hydra, face off against Marine's entire army in the summit war. As for the original storyline, what the hell is there to manage so much now? Come on, I'll fight you. You want to launch a Buster Call, that thing just doesn't look good enough in front of me. Sha Luo was also heartbroken. Now, Zephyr has been abducted by himself, and Alves Admiral is also over 70 years old and is about to retire. He was seriously injured by Charlotte Linlin last time, and it is estimated that he has not fully recovered. Just a Kong, Sengoku, Garp now. Do you want to fight? I'll go. Although the world government still has many secret organizations and the national treasures of the Tianlong people, he did not intend to confront the world government early, but now that he has a relationship with O'Hara, and since the world government is already staring at O'Hara, if you are still timid, what can you do? Anyway, he has already stared at him. The best way to deal with the enemy who has been staring at him is to hit him back with a stick. Let the other party be forced to shrink his head first, instead of shrinking his head directly. What are you looking at? If you want to fight, come and fight. If you don't even have this bit of confidence, then the opponent's arrogance will only be more prosperous. At that time, some tricks such as holding hostages and secreting black hands will be staged several times a month, constantly testing their own strength and endurance, not only annoying but also forced to stay on O'Hara Island. Watch every day. Of course, even if he hit him back with a single stick, he would probably have to stay near O'Hara for a while. Although there is no need to start a full-scale war now, and you won't get anything if you win, the basic battle stance still has to be done. Isn't there a saying that says, if you hit a punch, you won't get 100 punches? However, those are all about the time. Hearing Sha Luo's words, Magellan and the Marine soldiers invariably took a deep breath. Directly issued a declaration to the world government, if you want to fight, start a war, such a guy, I have never heard of it before, and I have never imagined it. And all this, for a woman, for an O'Hara Island? Incomprehensible and incredible man. Beside him, Orovia was involuntarily shocked at this moment. heart, a surging. I never imagined that he would be so complicated for himself. Maybe he meant something like, speaking ruthlessly in anger, but if he calmed down, he might not have said it again. However, even if it is a momentary ruthless remark, to be able to do this, the aura of this man is simply. It's really shocking. As this, my future husband? In Orovia's heart, an involuntary sweet honey. In the eyes, there is even a feeling of worship. Let's go. After entrusting Magellan with a few words to the world government, Sha Luo looked at Orovia next to her. Then, Shen shot, gently hugged her, took her, and flew up. The two unhurriedly flew to the first floor of the Impel Down Sea. In the sword grove below, Crimson Hell, Magellan took a deep breath. As the deputy director of Impel Down, now, the enemy is right in front of his eyes, strutting away with the prisoner, who was originally detained here, and in his heart, he wants to do something and stop the enemy. However, reason told him that all that was not only futile, but would only bring about worse consequences. Magellan stood silently, holding back the countless times he wanted to suddenly use the poisonous fruit to launch a surprise attack. It was not until Sha Luo took Orovia to the first floor of the sea as if traveling in the air, and then walked towards the gate of Impel Down. Deputy Director Magellan? The marine soldiers and the jailers also looked at each other. As the most indestructible prison in the world government that has existed here since the blank 100 years, in the past 800 years, no one here has ever successfully escaped. But today, not only have some people successfully escaped from prison, but also one by one. Or in front of countless guards, like walking in a courtyard, swaggering away? And the soldiers and jailers could only watch them. If I hadn't seen this with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it. Go back to the communication room immediately. Announce all the guards on the first floor, stick to their posts, but don't do anything without authorization. Magellan took a deep breath and looked at a deputy next to him. I will immediately report to the headquarters for today's matter and deal with it later. Yes. The deputy responded. Immediately, he quickly ran towards the communication room on the first floor of the sea. Magellan leaned down and carried Calvin's body up. Then, with the soldiers, they also headed for the exit of Crimson Hell. The same moment. Beep, beep, beep. Sha Luo took Orovia and walked towards the gate of Impel Down as if no one else was there. On both sides of the aisle, a large number of surveillance phone bugs found the two figures and issued a series of alarm sounds. Soon, a large number of soldiers ran towards the aisle. But then, the voice of the messenger rang out. Notify all places on the first floor. Report to all places on the first floor. Everyone sticks to their posts, but not unauthorized. Everyone sticks to their posts, but not unauthorized. What? Hearing the order from the communication room, the soldiers and jailers looked surprised. Even the prisoners locked in the nearby cells rushed to the cell door. Then, on the opposite side, Sha Luo took Orovia and walked over unhurriedly. Seeing the two appear, the soldiers couldn't help but raise their guns, ready to order them to stop. But at this time, I saw a dash of purple arcs on Sha Luo's forehead. And then, shoo! The guns in everyone's hands dropped in unison and floated toward the air. Seeing this, all the soldiers were shocked at the same time. Are you? A soldier captain exclaimed in shock. This ability to manipulate electromagnetism can't be wrong. He is Major Yuan Marine, Mine Eater Sha Luo. Another soldier exclaimed in shock and fear. What? Hearing the soldier's words, everyone's faces were moved. Mining Eater Sha Luo? No way, he's actually here at Impel Down? At the same time, countless prisoners in the nearby cell also looked at the corridor outside with a look of surprise, and looked at Sha Luo and Orovia who were walking unhurriedly. Can't be wrong. It's really him. The man who teamed up with that Whitebeard 10 years ago. The guy who was publicly declared as her husband by Big Mom Charlotte Linlin 2 years ago. What did he come to do? Wait, he's leaving with a woman. I have an impression of this woman. Isn't she a prisoner who only came in during the day? Did he come to take her away? Locked in during the day and rescued at night? But wait. The most important thing is, he can be rescued? Hey, this is Impel Down. What about that damn guy Calvin? Didn't he claim that this is his world, can beat anyone in the world here? And what about the poison guy? All the prisoners, chattering and talking in shock, all of a sudden, they were boiling. The reason is very simple. In this place where, nightmare, Calvin sits, for decades, even hundreds of years since the establishment of the world government, there has not even been a successful prison escape, let alone a prison robber. But now, with the man in front of him, he not only succeeded in robbing the prison, but also, he left so calmly and swaggeringly from the front. Robbed a prison, all robbed in such a bright and upright. Inform all places on the first floor. Everyone sticks to their posts, but must not do anything without authorization. Announce all places on the first floor. Everyone sticks to their posts, but cannot do it without permission. In the communication room, an order with emphasis was sent again. Hearing the repeated orders, the soldiers were shocked. The order in the communication room, as a soldier, cannot be disobeyed. What's more, it is an important order that has been repeated and emphasized repeatedly. They can't do it anymore. But more important than this, in the communication room, why would such an order be given? Let them watch the prison robbers, as well as the prisoners, who were kidnapped, and leave leisurely. This is not only incomprehensible, but not even dreamed of. The soldiers looked at each other in dismay. I don't want to do anything with you guys who have nothing to do with it, Sha Luo said indifferently. Can you let me go? Hearing his words, all the soldiers were startled again. The guards actually got out of the way. He's going through the door. There is no one else in this way of robbery. What if you don't? Said a braver soldier. Then, that's it. Sha Luo said lightly. As he spoke, a small coin appeared in his hand. Then, at will, shoot forward. Boom. The coin turned into a cannonball, rubbed against the air all the way, and found a strong orange light. The next moment, it heavily bombarded a door in front. The door shattered. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned collectively. The bold soldier from before was too shocked to speak at this time. Sha Luo, on the other hand, smiled indifferently. Then, farewell. After speaking, he took Orovia and continued to walk forward. On the side, all the soldiers involuntarily gave way to both sides. Until Sha Luo took Orovia and left floating. Wow. When the two figures officially left the door on the first floor and disappeared from everyone's sight, in the prison cell on the first floor of the impelled down sea, countless prisoners invariably let out a voice of incomparable amazement. They have never seen such a prison robbery, but Sha Luo obviously wouldn't care about all that. With Orovia, Sha Luo stepped out of impelled down calmly and swaggeringly. Beside him, Orovia was speechless in amazement. This man is simply too powerful. And every move, and so handsome. For myself, directly broke in, impel down. Then, go head to head with a formidable enemy, and even if you get stuck in a fight, never give up on yourself. And after defeating the powerful enemy, he did not complacently, slaughtered other people in impel down, or made trouble. Then, in order to continue to defend himself, he directly placed Ohara under his protection, so he did not hesitate to issue a declaration to the world government that, if you come to fight, go to war. Finally, when I left with myself, still so graceful, so calm. All in all, it is simply breathtaking. This is the man who used to be just a rumor for him, but now calls himself, Mrs. Now that impel down is out. What he said in impel down just now are temporary words, or. In Orovia's heart, she couldn't help but feel uneasy. Although he had told himself long ago, what he said at the time was probably just a temporary need and a fake marriage proposal. But I don't know when, in my heart, I seem to have deeply hoped that everything is a permanent declaration. Between anxiety and anticipation in her heart, Sha Luo looked at the night sky above her head. It's getting dark. Sha Luo said. Yeah, Orovia replied in a trance. Next, we have to catch a night drive, Sha Luo said. With a wave of his hand, he saw a small wooden boat already appeared on the sea in front of him. Then, she directly put her hands around Orovia's waist again. Let's go. After that, I took Orovia to the ship. The wooden boat is very small, a boat similar to a hexagon, with a diameter of only 4 or 5 meters, which is similar to the boat that Hawkeye often rides in the original book. In other words, Sha Luo was made to order by imitating the boat of Hawkeye, because it feels more appealing. However, there are no sails on the boat. Instead, the place where Hawkeye put the chairs into the mast was made into a small cabin for occasional shelter from the wind and rain. The embarrassing scene of the chicken in soup. I'm going to speed up next. The night wind is strong, you can sit in the cabin. Sha Luo let go of Orovia and said. Well, good. Orovia replied obediently. Then, sat inside the cabin door. This cabin is really not big, it is roughly equivalent to the interior space of a modern car, and the whole boat, on the vast sea, is even more small, as if a wind and waves come, it can be directly overturned. However, riding on such a little one, Orovia didn't have a trace of worry in his heart. Safe question. Non-existent. With this man here, do you need to ask all that? What's more, even if there is a 1 in a billion possibility, he will let it go, he will not blame him. Just hope he's alright. Sha Luo activated the electromagnetic ability, and the boat soon moved forward at high speed on the sea. In a whistling wind, soon, it was far away from impel down. By the way, what you said earlier in impel down is only temporary, right? At this time, Orovia finally said as if she couldn't help it. Ah. Sha Luo looked puzzled. What? Hearing this, Orovia's heart sank, and an obvious sense of disappointment and powerlessness struck instantly. But in his mouth, he still said involuntarily, that. I'm your wife. That's it. Hearing her words, Sha Luo suddenly realized. Then he nodded solemnly. You said so, then I will accept it with the flow. Hearing his words, Orovia was speechless. So, does this guy really want him, or is he just joking? There was silence, only Sha Luo took a deep breath. It's obviously impossible for me to tell Orovia that I initially followed her because of her future daughter Robin, and I didn't really have much thought about her at first. But no matter what, just now, in Impel Down, I had already made up my mind that in this era, I must grab her. That being the case, for a woman, even if it's a lie, she still really wants to hear the person who will become her husband in the future and say something that likes her. I've liked an intellectual beauty like you for a long time, Sha Luo thought for a while, but I was always embarrassed. After all, I have several other wives. You are engaged in academic research. Are you more concerned? Where? Hearing this, Orovia couldn't help but feel a joy in her heart. I will get along well with them. Speaking of the latter sentence, Orovia's face suddenly became hot. What am I talking about? He has already directly stated that he will get along well with his other wives. Is this just saying, you just take me in with confidence? Orovia's heart throbbed involuntarily. For a moment, I hoped that he hadn't heard the words just now, and at the same time, I hoped that he had heard it clearly. Of course, for Sha Luo, who is good at seeing, it is obviously the latter situation. That's great. Sha Luo smiled. Then from now on, I don't have to change my words. Orovia replied softly. Then, he let out a long, secret sigh of relief. Well, my future life and future destiny have finally been determined. Next, my whole life belongs to this man. The life of Mrs. as the man in front of me. Suddenly, there is a feeling of even more anticipation than when I obtained the historical text stone tablet before. The two fell silent for a while. Sha Luo suddenly felt a little embarrassed and didn't know what to do. The reason is very simple. Although he already has several wives, Lisa and Tia are sent to the door by himself. Aurora Babena has the same virtue as Hancock. As for Charlotte Linlin, he has chased him for more than 10 years. Several people can be said to be quite enthusiastic and quite active, so, that kind of thing, is a matter of course, and now, Orovia was not so enthusiastic at first, but he was a little difficult to start. But, as the so-called strike while the iron is hot, the status of husband and wife has been determined anyway, so it's almost. Is it time to make Robin? Sha Luo has always been a man who thinks and acts. Although when I first crossed over and learned that I had crossed into the world of One Piece, I was quite looking forward to it, and I would hug Robin on the left and Hancock on the right in the future. However, after all, he was an era earlier than them. And, with their mother, there are all kinds of strange love. In this case, do they have to send their mothers to give birth to them with other men? K your sister, don't care. The daughter is the daughter. The relationship between father and daughter is also fate. Do you have to be able to have sex? What's more, Robin is not the kind of woman who can't live without a man. The big can't take you to cultivate immortals together, or live a life that does not require men on Daughter Island. Speaking of which, there are no men on Daughter's Island, so how did the country continue? However, that kind of thing will be discussed later. The question now is that we have established husband and wife status with Orovia anyway, so time to build Robin. Although theoretically, Robin may also be born by her father in the original book and any other woman, as long as Sha Luo delays. Maybe one day Robin will be born in another family first, but, think about Orovia not Robin's mother, it seemed, even more awkward. After all, this is a very loving mother and daughter, and Orovia has too much to make up for her daughter in the original book. Or rush to let Orovia build her out. By the way, before I came out of the king's courtyard, what did you say to those people in Impel Down? Sha Luo suddenly remembered something, broke the silence, and said. At that time, in order to prevent Calvin from taking the opportunity to attack Orovia, Sha Luo directly sent Orovia out of the king's courtyard, surrender, posture, while Magellan and others on the opposite side didn't seem to take her as a hostage immediately, which is interesting to think about. That. Don't be unhappy when you say it. Orovia thought for a while and smiled slightly. Tell me about it. Sha Luo said. I can't beat the group of people outside, and I don't want to be taken hostage by them, Orovia said, so I can only tell them that their director has suppressed you, and just wants to leave me alive to continue the interrogation, so just throw me out, I will not resist. Anyway, the winning ticket is already in hand, so naturally they are not in a hurry to start. That's a very smart move. Sha Luo smiled and said, so, what's your real thoughts? Hearing his words, Orovia was slightly silent. Then, looking at him, in the swaying candlelight in the cabin, I saw a warm water like water in her eyes. You're sure to win, right? Orovia whispered. Seeing her gaze, Sha Luo's heart swayed like the candlelight in an instant. In the original book, Orovia appeared several times, all of which were more serious things, and even experienced a life and death crisis, so she has always been the kind of strong woman that is generally a bit stereotyped. But at this moment, that kind of Wenro, it really has the kind of spirit of her daughter's original plot, 2 years later. It seems that Robin can only be born from her, otherwise, it may reduce her temperament in the original book. And now, in this era, this woman with such a temperament. Of course you can only be your own woman, of course. Sha Luo took a deep breath and smiled, after all, my wife is still waiting for me outside. Hearing his words, Orovia's face turned red. Then, instinctively, he turned his eyes slightly to the side. But then he mustered up his courage and moved back again, looking at Sha Luo opposite. She is not the kind of little girl who only knows Jiao Shu. Like her future daughter, even in the face of some embarrassing things, she has a certain firmness and calmness. This kind of calmness, it's just killing me. It's just tempting me to sin. Sha Luo suddenly shot and grabbed Orovia's hands. Ma'am, I haven't done that thing for a long time, said Sha Luo. Orovia's face flushed slightly again. Then, still a little embarrassed, his eyes shifted slightly. Is it right here? What's wrong? Afraid of accidentally overturning the boat and falling into the sea. Sha Luo continued to move forward and hugged her all at once. Then hold me tighter, even if the boat is overturned, I can still protect me. You. Hearing his words, Orovia's eyes moved slightly. Then, obediently and softly replied, well. In the cabin, a special sound soon sounded. Sometimes low and sometimes high, sometimes light and sometimes heavy, it adds a special flavor to the vast sea in the dark night. Small cabin, like a modern car. In such a cabin, Sha Luo finally understood why so many people like the car shock in the three-dimensional world. The special scene really has a different feeling, I feel. Is this now called a boat shock, but that doesn't matter anymore. Important 1x1 large-scale real all-round online game, One Piece Online. Robin, is it time to build an account? After a long period of vibration, the volcano finally ushered in a violent eruption. Hundreds of millions of troops marched forward bravely. For a long time, the cloud collected the rain. Sha Luo let out a long breath. Countless lives. It is not known which one will finally survive as Robin. Oh yes, the name should also be determined. Sha Luo slowly pulled out. Then, he looked at Orovia, who had a unique charm after his first career in front of him. Speaking of which, because I have acquired some special ability by chance, I can make my wife and daughter enjoy longevity like me, and delay aging from the age of 20, Sha Luo said slowly, but at a cost, is a biological offspring, only a daughter. There is such a thing. Hearing this, Orovia was surprised. Then smiled again. However, if it were you, nothing would be strange. Well, Sha Luo said. Then what? Orovia asked. And then, if we had a daughter, what would you like to name her? Sha Luo said tentatively. Hearing his words, Orovia's face flushed slightly. They've already started talking about having a baby with him. However, between husband and wife, it should be like this. Daughter's words. Orovia thought for a while, what's your last name? I only have one name. Sha Luo said, since it's a daughter, let her be your last name. My last name is Nicole. Orovia asked, in that case, how about Nico Robin? Nicole. Robin? As expected, the biological mother and daughter. What a good name. Sha Luo admired her face, with such a beautiful name, I'm really looking forward to her birth next time. But. Orovia said softly, seeming slightly embarrassed. But what? Sha Luo said. I seem to be in a safe period these days. Sha Luo was speechless. Different from when she had sex with Lisa, Tia, and Oro Babena before, Orovia, as a scholar, even if she did not specialize in studying science, had more knowledge in various aspects than other women. It seems that none of the billions of seeds just now will germinate. I'm so excited. But then, Sha Luo cheered up again. It's okay, come back next time. Sha Luo said, I really want a daughter with a scholarly temperament like you. Really? Orovia said softly. The man in front of him, his husband, although he is not a scholar of Ohara, or even a man who lives in the shadow of swords and fists all day long, but it is really amazing to be able to value himself as a scholar and look forward to his daughter so much. Rare. As for the others, of course I can't ask him more. To be able to meet him, become his wife, and be so valued by him, I have already satisfied myself. Nicole Robin. She and her husband Kun-sama's daughter. Suddenly I want to see you soon. In Orovia's heart, anticipation rose involuntarily. However, expectations return to expectations, and it is not possible to do so if you are not in the corresponding menstrual period now. That night, Sha Luo hugged Orovia and spent the night in a small cabin. The sea is dark at night, and there are huge murderous intentions under the sea from time to time, but all that is destined to be only the background for Sha Luo and Orovia. The dark sea, the small cabin, the first night spent in such a place, think about it, it is really unique. And while Sha Luo happily held the beautiful lady for the night. Holy Land, Marie Joyce. The news that the director of Impel Down, Calvin, was directly killed by the mind-eater Sha Luo, and the news that the recently captured Ohara scholar, Orovia, was taken away in a grand manner, had already been placed in front of the 5 elders, so that the 5 were clearly ready to go to bed, but it will soon be reunited. At the same time, there are also 2 sentences brought by Magellan, honestly. Ohara, I'm covering it. If you want to do it, prepare yourself for a full-scale war. Call. Looking at the report in front of him, the 5 elders' armor wearing a black suit, curly white hair, and Peng Song's white beard slammed the table in front of him heavily. It's that mind-devouring boy again. Is this guy really related to Ohara? At the Impel Down home court, Calvin was killed by him. 5 elders B, wearing a dark blue suit, white long straight hair, and a long beard, frowned. This guy, it's been a year or 2 since then. The strength seems to have improved a lot. There have been quite a few reports that he has been living in the world of the Big Mom pirates for the past year, said 5 elders, a blonde wearing a crimson suit. Every once in a while, there will be a big fight, but after the fight, they go back together. It seems that the Charlotte Linlin is actually working as a sparring partner for him. It is not completely incomprehensible that there is such progress. But, if it goes on like this guy will sooner or later become the toughest being. Weared in a dark green suit, with a splayed mustache and a bald 5 elders with a Madara birthmark on his forehead. What's more, he has a relationship with the scholar of Ohara, said the bald 5 elders, wearing a white robe and holding a sword. This is not something to be taken lightly. For a long time, although those people in Ohara have been conducting prohibited research, they are a group of unarmed scholars. If they really want to eradicate them, they can do it at any time, not to mention that even if they research something, they do not have the strength to really do it. What's the matter? So we are not in a hurry to kill the killer right away, said 5 elders, but now it seems that it is really a huge hidden danger. Once Ohara finds something that is not good for us, and is known by that man, it will not be so easy to silence it at that time, said 5 elders B. So, do you want to do it now? 5 elders C said solemnly. Hearing his words, the rest of the people couldn't help being a little silent. At the same time, his eyes involuntarily glanced at the report on the table. In that report, there is a very clear declaration. If you want to start, then prepare yourself mentally for a full-scale war. Ohara, I'm covering it. If you want to do it, prepare yourself mentally for a full-scale war. That man's tone was really big, but without a doubt. He has the guts too. Whitebeard Edward. Newgate's old friend, Big Mom Charlotte Linlin's husband, former Marine Admiral Zephyr's best friend, behind these 3 forces, even if it is a powerless young boy. I am afraid he has the confidence to challenge anyone, not to mention, he is a man who can directly fight with any master in the world, and just killed Calvin in the Impel Down big away game. As for the world government, Marine is a facade. Now, after Admiral of Orovia was old and seriously injured, and the former Admiral Zephyr left, only Kong, who was a marshal, was left with a Marine Admiral Sengoku, plus a Garp, who refused to be promoted to Admiral, as well as their classmates and staff, as well as a group of Vice Admiral, came to reluctantly support the scene. These powers have absolute advantages in the face of ordinary characters. However, if you have to face that man, face his power and the power behind him. I won't say anything about Buster Call. That kind of battle was sent to him to jam his teeth. 6 years ago, when he first entered the Marine Corps, he demonstrated the anti-ship level skill of space-based fall, which can destroy a training ground with 1 blow, and of course, can destroy a warship with 1 blow. Not to mention how his strength in this area has improved in the past 6 years. 10 warships in front of him are 10 live targets for jokes. And even if Marine made a big push and narrowly won, at that time, I am afraid it will only be a miserable victory. What's more, even if you have the upper hand in the battle situation, it is not so easy to keep the masters on the opposite side. Not to mention anything else, just to fight against that man alone, if you want to keep him, you need at least 2 or more admiral level masters to make it possible, and it is only a possibility. And when the time comes, if Whitebeard, Big Mom, and Zephyr come to support. Overwhelmed. Possibly even Marine. That man, he's not the brainless character of Big Mom in the past. Long G. 5 Elders Ding said slowly, if we can't win with one blow, it's not a big deal for us who have been in the Marine for several years and are familiar with for him in Marine's situation. There are probably many ways to get revenge. Furthermore, the possibility of full reinforcements from Sha Luo, Linlin and Edward Newgate must also be considered, especially that Charlotte Linlin and her pirate group, 5 Elders B also said solemnly, that woman launched a ruthless attack, but even Bologna, an important island under the nose of naval headquarters, dared to attack directly. Edward Newgate, Whitebeard, is opposed to the Big Mom pirates. So he may not directly join forces with Charlotte Linlin for reinforcements, and since he joined forces with Whitebeard 10 years ago, it seems that the man has not. There was no sign of joining forces directly. After all, Whitebeard was not the kind of man who was sent casually, 5 Elders Jaw said. However, if that man put down his face and asked Whitebeard for help in person after he was defeated, Whitebeard's actions would probably also difficult to deal with. Right now, it doesn't seem like the time for a full-scale war. 5 Elders Ding took a deep breath. In my opinion, at least we have to wait for Beast's Kaido to develop it. At that time, it can be used to block Charlotte Linlin's kind of strange power that even Marine Admiral was forcibly wounded, and then Marine can free up his hands and deal with that man with all his might. But, is this enough? The bald-headed 5 Elders Wu, wearing a white robe and holding a sword, said slowly, that man, even if he can win, is not so easy to stay. Hearing his words, the others fell silent again. That's right, even if the opponent is a top player like Whitebeard or Charlotte Linlin, it's probably not as troublesome as that man. The reason is simple, he is the fastest man possible in the world. If he can't seal the space for him to escape, even if he has a big advantage in the scene, I am afraid it will only be empty in the end. If it's still not enough, Long G. 5 Elders B said slowly, when the time comes, we can only consider using that thing. Are you serious? Hearing his words, 5 Elders C moved Rong Daochi. If his threat is so great that it will shake the foundation of this world for hundreds of years, then, if he doesn't want to make any sacrifices, the result will probably only get worse. 5 Elders as slowly said. Speaking of which, the voice became low. But, once you do it, this time. Ohara's centuries-old threat, to join him, to clear. Hearing his words, the other people's faces moved in unison. Then, take a deep breath. In his eyes, there has been a heavy murderous intent, either lightly or heavily. The other side. Sha Luo, who happily captured Orovia's first blood at sea, tossed for a while, then he hugged Orovia and let her sleep peacefully in his arms. On the other hand, with his eyes open, he touched the delicate skin of the beautiful woman in his arms, from time to time, while paying attention to the situation outside, and steered the boat and drove all night. His physical energy reserves are quite sufficient. Although he has done piston movements for more than an hour in one breath and burst out several rounds, it is completely fine to not sleep all night. One night passed quickly. The next morning, Orovia slowly woke up. When I opened my eyes, I saw that Sha Luo had walked outside the cabin, controlling the ship to move forward smoothly and quickly. Orovia sat up immediately. At this time, I saw that there seemed to be some special, pale yellow things on my right hand and arm. Orovia understood in a blink of an eye. Last night, my husband held me and kept a watch all by himself. The night was long and a little boring, so. Using his own hands a little, he did something indescribable for him. Of course, under his body, there are still various traces left. Orovia then stepped out of the cabin. Oh, get up, outside. Sha Luo had already noticed her movement and smiled. Orovia said, that. Husband Kun-sama. What's the matter? Sha Luo asked. It's nothing. Orovia thought for a while, then swallowed her words. I kind of wanted to ask him if he had vented his feelings last night, but after all, we only became husband and wife last night, and it took a while. It's really not good to speak directly. She is not like her daughter in the original book who has been on the run for many years and is well informed, so she doesn't change her face when she pinches Frankie's golden egg. However, seeing her concerned and slightly embarrassed look, Sha Luo couldn't help but move. By the way, Orovia, your physical strength doesn't seem to be very good. Sha Luo thought for a while. Well, having been doing academic research, it's true that doesn't exercise much, Orovia said. So, how about exercising a little more? Sha Luo smiled meaningfully. What my husband meant by exercise was obviously all too clear. Immediately, Sha Luo held Orowi and made another shot. Then, she took some seawater and washed it a little. Then, took out some food from the storage space and the two had breakfast. The boat continued to move forward steadily. At this time, Orovia asked Sha Luo where she was going next. Sha Luo did not shy away, and directly told her the whereabouts of several wives and daughters, as well as the next destination, Nine Snake Island. Hearing that Sha Luo was actually married to the Nine Snake Emperor Orobabena, Orovia couldn't help being surprised. But then he calmed down again. With such a handsome and powerful man as his husband, as long as he has a little friendship with him, it is not surprising that any beautiful woman likes him, right? However, speaking of Orobabena, I can't help but think of the 9 snake pirates renamed the 9 snakes sea knights, a year or two ago. If you guessed correctly, the incident of the 9 snakes and sea knights was also instructed by you, Lord Kun Kun? Orovia said. That's right. Sha Luo said. Immediately, he explained the matter between himself and Orobabena in detail. Especially about the Sha thing. Then, by the way, I also talked about the reason why I am interested in the blank 100 years. One is because of curiosity, and the other is to know whether the monopoly power of the world government over justice is upright and natural. Should the world be as it is now, with a group of shit aristocrats in control of absolute authority? Speaking of grandeur, in front of Sha Luo's eyes, the world seems to have become a chessboard again, and sooner or later, she will change everything on this board. Beside him, Orovia looked at him, and in his eyes, bursts of admiration could not help. My husband is actually a man with such ambition and courage. No wonder, when Impel was down yesterday, his king's courtyard even directly suppressed Calvin's infinite nightmare. It's really so lucky to be able to be his woman. The rest is to do everything possible to help him in the future. But what can I do to help him? In terms of combat power, even if he starts to practice with all his strength right now, that little martial power is completely negligible to him. There are only 3 things that can be done. 1. Absolutely must maintain a good relationship with his other wives and daughters, and not cause him any trouble or force him to be distracted. 2nd, if he wanted, then serve him well. And thirdly, he wants a daughter. Then hurry up and give birth to the daughter Robin he wants. Orovia touched I subconsciously and touched his lower abdomen. Of course, there is apparently no new life there right now due to the safe period. The ship was at sea, moving fast and smoothly. Impel Down was originally on the calm belt, so there were no pirate ships or bad sea conditions along the way, no wind and no waves, only sea kings. Of course, for Sha Luo, those sea kings who occasionally pop up and don't know what to do are obviously not worth mentioning. 2 days later, the familiar shadow of 9 Snake Island finally appeared ahead. Sha Luo then steered the boat and was about to go to the main gate. At this time, beside him, Orovia patted his arm. What's wrong? Seeing that Orovia suddenly patted herself, Sha Luo turned her head and looked at her. Are you going to go in directly from the main entrance? Orovia asked. Yeah, what's wrong? Sha Luo asked in confusion. Lisa, Tia, Orobabena, Guion, Hina, Hancock, should all be looking forward to your return? Orovia said. Of course. Sha Luo said with a little pride. Lisa and Tia naturally don't need to say much about their feelings. Orobabena is a guy who is so enthusiastic that it is almost nervous, while Guion and Hina, and Hancock, who is under a year old and has not yet met, because of the caring father, he has absolute guarantee for his closeness to himself. For these, Sha Luo has absolute confidence and pride. Then it's better not to take me directly for the time being, Orovia said. What do you mean? Sha Luo didn't understand. You still don't fully understand a woman's mind. Orovia smiled and said, it's been a long time since we met again. Of course, what I want to do most is to have a warm relationship with my husband. At this time, you bring a new. What does it mean when a strange woman meets them? At least wait for them to enjoy the joy of show to the fullest? Hearing this, Sha Luo was a little speechless. He really didn't think too much about such details. After all, when I brought Lisa and Tia to see Orobabena, I told them about Orobabena long ago on the boat. As for Orobabena, I knew it for a long time. I have 2 wives, so both parties should have no problem when they meet each other. Of course, I didn't see the scene of the meeting with my own eyes, because at that time, I had already rushed to New World to stop Sha Luo and Linlin from killing the island. And now, directly take Orovia to reunite after a long absence with the 3. Thinking about it carefully, it does seem a little wrong. What the 3 of them want to do the most is obviously not to introduce their new wife to them, but to do something like slap, or slap with themselves, right? At this juncture, Orovia does not seem to be convenient to snatch the show. Then what do you mean? Sha Luo said. Put me somewhere first, Orovia said, it's not too late to introduce me to them after you meet again. Is that so? Sha Luo thought a little. Alright. Saying that, he looked at the 9 Snake Island in front of him. It seemed that Orovia didn't mean to compete with Liza and the others at all, and even felt a little voluntarily giving in. This was a good thing. A harmonious Hu palace is the dream of countless men. Then, come with me first, Sha Luo said, just in time. I also have some things that I want to tell the citizens of Nine Snakes a little bit. Immediately, he hugged Orovia. Then, with a shoo sound, he went to Nine Snake Island. When you get close to the island, Sha Luo frowned. The powerful hockey instantly spreads to the whole island with quite high strength. Plop, 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 plop. Nearby, the soldiers of Nine Snake Island, who were conducting daily patrols and garrisoning, fell one after another before they could find him. At the same time, countless women on the island also fell softly. In a blink of an eye, the entire island was filled with women who fell from place to place. All the women were lying on the ground, motionless, completely in a state of being picked by Kun. Seeing this scene, Orovia was secretly shocked again. At the same time, I was full of admiration and pride. My husband, sure enough, too strong, powerful in every sense. And after stunning countless Nine Snake women with one blow, Sha Luo took Orovia and quickly entered Nine Snake Island. Then, I looked ahead, found a place with few people, and quickly fell. Katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Then, I'll put you here first. Sha Luo said, you can wander around the island by yourself. When you need to see you, I have a way to find you. Okay, Orovia said. Sha Luo then flew into the air again with a swoosh sound. Then move forward for a while to distance yourself from Orovia. At this time, when the women were collapsing collectively, on the Nine Snake Island, a figure quickly flashed out of a room located in a relatively high place. Then, after looking at it for a while, he quickly flashed towards Sha Luo. Soon, stopped in front of Sha Luo. Ah! It really is the husband Kun-sama. The woman was undoubtedly the Nine Snake Emperor, Orobabena. At this time, she saw that Sha Luo not only came to Nine Snake Island, but also took the whole island again. Immediately stunned, not only did he not feel uncomfortable at all, on the contrary, he looked excited. Haki is so powerful, her concubine is far inferior. It's all right. Sha Luo smiled and said, as the husband of the Nine Snake Emperor, he has given the whole country another slap in the face to prove that he has the strength to marry their emperor. I hope you don't mind. He didn't want to be like in some old-fashioned YY novels he had read before. The protagonist married a powerful beauty as his wife. As a result, a bunch of people suspected that the protagonist was eating soft food, and then jumped out to BB with the protagonist, and then the protagonist forcibly pretended, slap in the face. Not only bloody, but boring. Directly bringing down the whole country is the simplest and most effective method. And hearing his words, on the opposite side, Aurora Babena suddenly looked like she was going to be high-minded and excited. Sir Husband Kun. Lord Husband Kun actually thought so? That's right. Sha Luo said, what's wrong? I actually declared to the whole country that I was a concubine's husband. Even if the whole country opposed it, I would still marry a concubine. Aurora Babena's face was red with intoxication. The concubine is really. I am so happy. Sha Luo was speechless. What kind of brain circuit is this? After meeting Aurora Babena, Sha Luo immediately went to the place where she and Lisa and others lived under the leadership of Aurora Babena. Soon, he entered a spacious room. In the hall, I saw Lisa, Tia, Gion, Hina, and several maids, all lying there at this time. Beside them, there were 3 little girls who looked less than 1 year old, sitting around each other, and at this time, they were all crooked. One of the little girls has black hair, and the other 2 have green hair and orange hair respectively. These 3. Is Hancock and the others? Sha Luo stepped forward and said. Exactly. Olobababena looked proud and excited. They are Hancock, Sandersonia, Marigold, they are all concubines and husband Kun, your children. But according to the habit of the 9 snakes, if it is a single child, it does not matter whether it has a surname or not, but if there are sisters, in order to express the sister relationship between each other, a common surname is usually taken. Husband Kun adults, they 3 sisters. What kind of surname do you think is better? This. Sha Luo pondered slightly. Your sister, do you still need to think about it? Since it's a child born on 9 Snakes Island, one day in the future, maybe she will become the most outstanding female warrior in 9 Snakes, Sha Luo said. Then, let's use Boa as the surname. Do you mean, Anaconda Snake? Aurora Babena asked. As an island with a culture of snake and flower, everyone on this island is quite familiar with terms related to snakes and flowers. Every person on the island has a snake and carries it with him. Many people use various flowers as their names. Hearing Sha Luo's words, Aurora Babena immediately understood. Anaconda snakes, a huge category of snakes and pythons, can even be said to be the king of snakes in terms of body size alone. That's right. Sha Luo said, I hope that one day, one of them will become the king of the next generation, the emperor of Nine Snake Island. In this case, you and I can retire and find a place to live together. Seclusion together. Hearing his words, Aurora Babena's mind seemed to instantly make up the scene of two people hugging in seclusion, together in a small quiet corner. The next moment, with a look of excitement, yes, Hukun-sama's children, of course, should have such heights. Then, their surnames are decided like this. Next, let's take this as a standard and train them well. After speaking, he quickly stepped forward and shook the three little girls on the ground. Hancock, Sandersonia, Marigold, don't wake up soon, your father is back. Officially gave you a common last name. Under her shaking, Hancock and the others finally woke up. Nearby, after being dazed for a while, Lisa and Tia were also awake at this time. Lord Hukun? Seeing Sha Luo, their faces were full of surprise. Lisa, Tia, how are you these days? Sha Luo smiled and said. At the same time, he stepped forward and patted Gion and Hina lightly. The next moment, a special energy poured into their bodies, Gion and Hina, and they suddenly woke up. The power to forcibly recover the corresponding subject from some psychic influence. This is precisely the advanced use opened by Tyrant Territory. After obtaining the assistance of Analysis I. Now, his dominant territory can not only allow him to forcibly resist the influence of the spiritual system, but also use it on other people he comes into contact with. With him, even Big Mom in the original book would never be able to use it. He siphoned the soul of any of his daughters before him. Dad. Seeing Sha Luo in front of them, Gion and Hina immediately became excited. The next moment, one left and one right, directly hugged Sha Luo with both arms and squeezed into his arms at the same time. Oh, my two daughters. Seeing her daughter being so close to her father, Sha Luo felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Although I don't know how Gion and Hina will get along with them when they grow up, Gion and Hina, who are now 5 years old, are really at their most innocent and lovely. Looking at the lovely and close faces of their two daughters, in an instant, Sha Luo's heart, suddenly, was completely relieved. Although when I learned that the future marine beauty in these two original books had become my own daughter, I was still a little emotional and a little bit painful. However, seeing them have been so close to themselves since childhood, and even regarded themselves as one of the closest people in the world since childhood, this feeling. Also Ting is good. Father and daughter are father and daughter. But you must always love your father well. Sha Luo quickly and lovingly took the two people into her arms. Hancock, call me daddy. At this moment, next to Aurora Babena, holding Hancock, came over. Papa. Hancock opened her small mouth and babbled a few words that she might not even know the meaning of. Okay. Sha Luo had a smile on her face. Correspondingly, you must also be a good daughter who loves her father. Gion, Hina, you two let go first, Sha Luo immediately said to Gion and Hina. You have 3 younger sisters, and I haven't hugged my father yet. Let me hug them first.